Tilder!
What is this? This is the Aputure Amaran HR672 LED series. How much does it cost? Anywhere from $280 to $300 depending on which model you get. There's a daylight wide beam model, a daylight spot beam model, and a bicolored model. You can control it wirelessly. There's no flicker. Comes with everything you need, including 2 batteries. Can last almost 6 hours at full brightness with the included large Sony NPF batteries. It can even charge your batteries as you're using the light with the included AC power brick. Do I recommend this? Yes, depending on where you are in your filmmaking journey. I highly suggest you stick around for my reasonings where I will dive into 3 different filmmaker perspectives and levels at the bottom line.
Done! Roll that intro!
Hey, what's going on everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. Today we're going to find out whether or not the Aputure Amaran HR672 LED panel series is going to be the right solution for you and your overall lighting kit. I want to especially thank Aputure for sending me out the bicolored version so that I can provide this review for you. And I'm super excited because Aputure is a really huge disruptor in the professional LED lighting industry. So I'm very excited to finally review one of their products. So without further ado, let's get started. This light comes in at approximately $280 to $300 depending on which version you get, because there's actually 3. There's a wide and a spot beam version which is only available in 5500K daylight, or you have the bicolored version, which is the more expensive out of this bunch. And of course, they do sell it in major kits, which gives you a much more hefty carrying case. If you just get one light on its own, you're going to get this little carrying case that holds the light itself, 2 large Sony NPF batteries, which is awesome, the AC power adapter, the light stand mount, which also has an umbrella port if you want to use some umbrella diffusion or umbrella reflectors, and then curiously enough, they actually give you some replacement LED bulbs should any of them burn out. And I'm guessing that the installation process isn't terribly hard, but if you already know how to work your way around some electronic stuff and you tinker with breadboards and all that other good stuff, then you probably will have no problems replacing it on your own. In terms of the LED build, it is predominantly made out of plastic, and I know that's going to be a talking point for some of you, but please hear me out at the bottom line towards the end of this video. But in terms of one awesome feature that Aputure thought of was that you can actually charge your Sony NPF batteries in the 2 ports in the back. This is extremely useful for people that are moving between different sets, maybe within a studio. So hear me out in this situation. So let's say you're shooting on set number 1, you have the NPF batteries plugged in, they're charging while you're shooting. So now we need to get the lights set up in the second set. At this point in time, the grip team can basically unplug the light, move the light only to the next set, and because it's operating on battery, they can start dialing in everything while the other team is unplugging certain things, kind of tearing down set number 1 and moving what they need to set number 2. At this point in time, when that second team has come over, basically the light's already set where they need to be. They can plug it in so it's running out of AC power while it's charging the batteries. So you basically do this from set to set to set, and there is no downtime. The teams can work much more efficiently. So awesome on Aputure for thinking about this way ahead of its time, because this LED panel is actually 5 years old. So good on Aputure for thinking ahead back then. In terms of LEDs these days, they have wireless controls, and this LED light is no exception. You get this tiny little remote and you can basically group your light panels in 3 different channels, and at that point in time you can turn them on, turn them off, you can dim it, you can change the color, basically what you would expect with most wireless controls. In terms of battery life, it does quite well for a LED panel in this class, and it keeps up with pretty much all the LED panels I have reviewed in this range. So with the included batteries, if you are shooting at 3200 full on brightness, you're going to get approximately 5 hours and 45 minutes of operation time. At 5500K, you're going to get approximately 5 hours and 50 minutes of operation time. If you are at 4400K, where all the LEDs are blasting at the same time, you're going to get approximately 2 hours and 30 minutes of operation time. So really not bad at all. In terms of how powerful this light is, I'm running it through my standard test. So this light is 6 feet away from the wall, ISO 400, f2.8, 1/60th of a shutter speed, and here are some lux readings as well as we go through each of the f-stops. In terms of how you can use the 672s, could you use this bicolored version as a key light? You can in certain situations, and I would definitely say you're going to want to put a diffusion material in front of it somewhere because you're going to definitely need to soften the light. If you shine the bare LEDs at your talent, it is going to be a little bit rough on their skin and the overall look. But if you do want to use these type of panels for a key light, I would say you're probably going to want to go with their daylight only version, the spot beam version, because that's going to give you the most amount of output, the most amount of control of shooting it right at the diffusion material, and that's going to help you get more options with how you're going to expose for a shot. Because if you're in a very bright room, you're definitely going to need a much more powerful panel than this bicolor panel can put out for a key light. But that being said, an LED panel, while it's very versatile, it's not necessarily the tool for everything. Now I can hear some of you guys saying already, why would I spend $300 on one panel when you recently just reviewed the Neewer 660, you used the GVM 520Ss, they're very similar to this bicolored version, they blast out more or less the same amount of power, so why would I spend all that money on one single panel? Well guys, buckle up, because here's the bottom line, and it's a bottom line that comes from 3 different perspectives, and you have to listen to all 3 of them. I highly recommend it, because based on where you are in your filmmaking journey is how you have to kind of sort of start thinking. So without further ado, let's go at the top of the top. First viewpoint, you're a professional. You are working Monday through Saturday, you have clients after clients, you're on a team of 5 to 15, and this is what you do every day. At this point in time, you've probably had to ask yourself, which company am I going to buy into? Am I going to buy into ARRI? Am I going to buy into light panels? Am I going to buy into Aputure, this new company that seems to be producing a lot of good stuff at a budget? Which one? So what do I mean by this, and why would you do it? To them, the HR672 series is actually the cheapest medium-sized LED panel that blasts out a good amount of light in their overall kit. Because let's say they're doing this industrial corporate. At that point, they're probably saying, okay, let's use a 300D blasting through the window, maybe put a gel on it to kind of give this nice ambient coming from the window. For our talent, I need a 120D because we can get that up close. We're not shooting a super wide here. So let's get a 120D about 6 to 7 feet away, get that softbox on it, or put up a 4x4, something, blasting through diffusion. Okay, we got our key light. All right, let's get a little fill here. Do we want to use a bounce? No, not necessarily. Okay, let's get that HR672 in there and let's fill in that part of their shadow. That is where they're going here. This is the cheapest Aputure light out of that lineup, and they can use it as an auxiliary light. But here's the next thing that I know you guys are wondering. Well, why would they buy all in one company? Because when a working professional buys into one single light company, they know that that company at this price point is making sure all of their lights are consistent with each other in terms of quality. When you're buying into Neewer, when you're buying into GVM, all these more budget-friendly lights, yes, I know they work quite well, but they're inconsistent. They're inconsistent from one product to the next because they're not all using the same LED chips and they're not all held to the same standards. Aputure is making sure that that 120D is going to match up with their Aputure MC. It's going to match up with their Tri-8, the 300D. All these lights are going to match with each other because they're all held at this standard. Not only that, these lights are purpose-built. They're not hand-picked little parts from the shelf, crammed together and call it good. No, everything that they have done so far is purpose-built for filmmakers by filmmakers. They are not lying when they're saying that. They're development from the 300D Mark I to the 300D Mark II is light and day. And with the other stuff that they just announced at IBC, I believe, they are creating so many tools that are all meant to work together at a very insane price point that's reachable for most professionals. So that is one reason why this HR672 is not expensive. It is simply an auxiliary light to complement the overall family of the Aputure lights that this professional filmmaker has used. So that's one viewpoint. Second viewpoint, you have worked in the film industry for yourself, you're developing a team slowly, you're getting money in, there's budget coming in, you are making money doing this, and you're getting to that professional level. At this point in time, you're at that professional's level's first thought. Okay, which company am I going to be buying in for my camera, my sound, my lights? At this point in time, then yes, this light can be worth it. Because at this point in time, you've parted out everything. You've looked at the Aputure catalog and you're saying, okay, based on what I film, what I do, where I see my artistic vision going, I'm gonna need to get myself one 300D, two 120Ds, one Tri-8 panel, and let's get a couple of those small LEDs and let's get a cheaper medium-sized panel, because I don't necessarily need a bunch of Tri-8s. I could definitely use a couple of the cheaper large panels. You've parted out everything. So at this point in time, it's worth it to you if this is part of your overall kit that you are saving up to buy. So at this point, you've done your research, it's worth it to you for sure. So let's go to the last viewpoint, which is where I'm still kind of at, and budget. Budget. Money is not growing on trees, and you need to be careful with how you invest it into your filmmaking career. Is this HR672 the right light for a budget filmmaker? No, absolutely not. You should not be spending $300 on this panel when you have other tools that can give you more or less the same kind of output, and you need to spend that money on something else. You need to develop your kit, you need to develop your reel, you need to get as many works out there that you can show and make money with before you get to that point where you're saying, I'm gonna go straight up with Aputure or straight up with another company. At this point in time, you should not be spending this type of dollars on these types of lights. But what if you say, yeah, I know I'm on a budget right now, but I do want to buy into the Aputure community or the family of lights? No, I'd still say no, because you're spending so much money on one single light, and that's only from one source. You need multiple lights, you need sound, you need more cameras, you need all these other things so you can develop an actual full product. I know you're gonna say, yeah, but I want all my lights to be consistent. I get that. But if you're spending all that money right away up front, you're not developing the craft just yet. Develop your craft, and then you can move into these types of very, very specific lights. So I have to say, as a budget filmmaker, do not get it. Get the cheaper stuff first, develop yourself. Okay, I have one more bottom line here, because I know some people are gonna ask me this, because I'm actually a very budget-oriented person, and I think always on the budget, but I am aspiring to get to that point where I am just making movies all the time, feature films, so that I can bring all my experiences onto this channel. Because so far I've only really worked on 3 of them as a director of photography and director, and then I've been an actor in another one. So 4 films under my belt where I was there the whole time. Is Aputure a company that I'm going to buy into when I get to that point in my filmmaking career? Hands down, yes. Yes. And here's why. When I take a look at Aputure, from when I first knew who they were, because they were making some monitors back then, believe it or not. You might not even know this depending on how young you are, but they made monitors, they made some EF to micro 4/3 adapters where you can use a remote to do a wireless remote focusing, but then they ended up on lights. when I looked at how they've developed their lights from 5 years ago to now, each light that they have created is purpose-built. They know what the filmmaker needs. They want something that's passively cooled on this end. They want some RGB, but they want to be able to do this. They want to be able to do that. Then they come out with this 120D that just took the market by storm. It's like a golden standard for most people to have it in their lighting kit. I've seen so many of them come through the green screen studio that I used to work at. And the 300D, now the Mark II versions, then you have the attachments, and then the fact that all of them are meant to work with each other, especially with that smartphone app, especially with all the new lights coming after it. Aputure has me because they care. They listen. They don't just make a bunch of products and throw it out there. Their development cycle is like 1 year. Yes, every year they're coming out with new stuff, but they don't have like 10 different versions of the 120D back to back to back. They're only on their second version, and they keep up with the technology and figuring out how to utilize it so that the filmmaker at the end benefits from this. The filmmaker at the end says, I have a tool that does exactly what I need because some people out there thought outside the box and really, really took their time developing it. That is why, mark my words, when I get there, Aputure is the company I want to go with for my lighting needs. So, yeah, anyways, I know this was a super long video. If you listen to that huge long bottom line, thank you so much for listening. It's very important, and I think people need to understand how to think in these different levels. In fact, I have a Think Critically series where I talk about how I go about purchasing filmmaking tools. So I'll link that up here if you want to check that out. But again, if you listen to it this long, thank you. And of course, if this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check out my affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you, just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.